Hello and welcome back to another episode of Come Over for Dinner. I'm Bess Hawthorne, and today I'm joined by a very special guest. Her name is Allison Weeks. She is the host of a podcast named The Art of Home. It's a podcast for homemakers where she seeks to encourage and inspire ladies in the occupation of homemaking. So we are going to hear stories from her, as well as some of her recommendations for just things to do to make our homes more beautiful. She has been married 32 years. She has 3 sons and 1 daughter. They're all grown, and now she has a couple of grandchildren. She loves to thrift and go to estate sales, loves arts and crafts, and loves making her home beautiful. Welcome, Allison.
Thank you so much, Bess. I am just thrilled to be here. I'm excited about this conversation.
Well, me too. Tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Well, I am definitely certified empty nester. Like you said, all my kids are grown and gone, which was a bit of an adjustment. And so that's where the podcast came in. I call it my empty nest project. So
You started it a few years ago?
Yes, I started getting the germ of the idea during COVID, 2021, right? Or 2020.
Yes.
2020. And then I launched it in 2021. I just had this desire to do something creative that I had never tried before. And so I thought, well, hey, why not try a podcast? I had a couple of friends who were dipping their toe in the podcast water. And I was like, ooh, that looks like fun.
I can
Yeah.
talk.
Yeah, I can talk.
And you're great at it.
Oh, thanks. I try. But my real heart has just always been with women's ministry. I've done women's ministry all of my adult life. And it's so funny because I didn't think about it this way in the beginning, but this really was just another way to do women's ministry. Mm-hmm. Because that's primarily what my goal is to reach out to those younger women and connect them with the stories of the older women who have already walked the road that they're walking in homemaking and trying to, figure out how to get dinner on the table at the right time and while they're wrangling toddlers and, all of that stuff. I wanted to encourage them that we've all been there and God has been faithful to see us through all of that. And the work that they're doing is so valuable and so important. So that's always been my heart because I had women step into my life when I was young and say those things to me. And so I wanted to be able to put that out there for the ladies just in the broader global church. And what a cool way to get to do that through podcasting. So
absolutely. I mean, a lot of times you are in a place where you have maybe a lady in your church that you could talk to, but some people don't. They maybe weren't raised in a home where homemaking was important, where mom had skills that she passed on. And then maybe you're also in a place where it is hard to find those ladies who are willing to invest one-on-one time or just individual time teaching. So being able to access that so readily, even if you do have it, being able to access it when you are kind of doing the dishes or something else where you can just find that encouragement and tips and just wisdom from older ladies who've, like you have said, who've been there and walked that road. You can feel like I can do this too. And I can learn from these ladies. There's so many different ladies that you interview, so many different life experiences. Tell us a little bit about your podcast. I know that you do a homemaker portrait once a week, and it's a longer version, about an hour, and then a shorter Monday motivation that's a specific topic. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, thank you so much for asking. It's morphed and evolved over the 4 years. I'm in my 5th year now. So, and I've just kind of been rolling with the punches and, like, okay, well, this isn't working. Well, let's try this. Well, what if we did this? So the shape that it has taken currently is exactly what you said. My seasons are typically 8 weeks long, and then I take several weeks off just to have time to do my own homemaking and be with my grandkids and have a little extra margin. So during those 8 weeks, you will get every Monday a short form Monday Motivation, which is basically a recycled newsletter article. It's from, the past archives from the newsletter. And it's just an encouragement. It stands on its own. You don't have to, have been following to get something from that episode. And then the Wednesday episodes are those longer form where I speak to a woman about her whole journey. And I hear about the whole process of when she first became a homemaker and, who influenced her and all her ups and downs and wins and fails. We talk about her best recipes and her best tips, and I just get the greatest stories. I love doing this so much because, like you said, everybody is so different and everyone's experience is so different. Originally, I started with older women, and that is the bulk of who I have talked to over the years. But we do talk to some, we call them in the trenches homemakers. So they're sort of that in between stage. And then we call our other group the newbies. So those are 5 years or and under experience. And I wanted to do that because I wanted to get this cross-generational conversation going so that we could get the perspectives of women in different stages, different generations. And so then let's see, that's Mondays and Wednesdays. And then every other Friday, there's a companion newsletter that goes out, and it has printable recipes from the guests that I have talked to that week or the 2 weeks prior, any extra resources that they share with us. Sometimes I'll have a guest who does have a platform or something to offer, and, they might share something that we can give to the readers. It's just a nice, and then there'll also usually be an article from me or from one of our guests or from somebody else who's just on various topics about homemaking, and it's meant to just encourage an extra boost of encouragement for those ladies. But I do tell listeners, getting back to your point about the mentorship and having women in your life who can speak this into you face to face, I tell ladies, this is kind of funny, but I kind of say the podcast is sort of a gateway drug. Like, I want the listeners to get a taste for sitting across the kitchen table with a woman and sharing experiences, working side by side, sitting with that older lady and letting her teach you how to sew or how to do something, related to homemaking, and entering into one another's lives so that you really grow side by side like that. So I want them to get a taste on the podcast, but it's never meant to be a substitute. Right. I want them to go out and find that in person. Go find those women in person and have those relationships.
Right. Be in a local church, work shoulder to shoulder together. Our church ladies group often says that. They have a women's, I don't know, I'm trying to remember what they call it. We just had a ladies fellowship. Maybe it's yet ladies fellowship. They often say, we're working shoulder to shoulder, not necessarily just sitting there face to face. Not that there's something wrong with just a coffee every now and then, but we're not just sitting and, talking all the time. We actually are doing our work that God has called us to together and encouraging each other in that and learning from each other. We just recently had a ladies fellowship time on Saturday where they had some talks, and in between there were tables you could look at to sign up for signal groups that last maybe a month or so, where people ladies can sign up and just be encouraged in different areas. But it was all about homemaking and improving a skill. One was big hospitality. Another one was organization in your home. Another one was interior design. And so it's just a way similar to what you're talking about, except on a local level, where the ladies get together, they enjoy visiting, they enjoy the fellowship, but the whole goal is outward focused, or, or together we are now going out and doing the work that God has called us to, and how can we help each other be better at it? And it was just and then there was lunch afterwards, and it was just a great, fun time to really be encouraged in your homemaking and in hospitality and all of those things.
I love that so much. And that's kind of what I'm encouraging the listeners to do, because and honestly, the primary audience for the Art of Home, these are busy mamas. They don't have the luxury of the time to go sit and have a 2-hour coffee with an older lady at a coffee shop. Like, that's just not even possible for them in the stage they're in right now. So I do actually also have a lot of older ladies listening who are like me. They are empty nest and they've had their kids out for a while. And I try to encourage those ladies to be much more practical about how they approach the younger women and be willing to go, I would love to get together with you. When can I come over to your house? Be willing to go into their house and minister to them alongside them while they're caring for their children. And even if that means, even if you're trying to study a book of the Bible together or something like that, you can do that in the home, during nap time. Just try to meet her where she's at. It's just so much more practical to do it that way. So.
Right. One of the ladies at one of the talks was mentioning that she had an older lady friend who had Alzheimer's, and she would try to visit her. I think it was once a week. She would go visit her, and they would sit, and she would just really, try to visit and talk, and it just became more and more difficult. It was draining on her, and then she could also tell the other lady was just kind of seemed tired, and It's like something is it's just not working out well, even though
Mhm.
she was wanting to do this. And she had the idea to just do something together, like work together.
Mhm.
And so I don't know all the things that they did, but in the end, once they started doing things together, the older lady with Alzheimer's,
Mhm.
they got into the kitchen and she showed her how to can peaches.
Oh.
And she helped her with her Sabbath dinner prep. And I don't know, there were multiple things that she
Mm.
mentioned, but every time she went for a visit, they were doing something together.
Mhm.
And it
Mhm.
just changed the dynamic completely. They
Yeah.
both had a great time. They were getting things done. And that's what we're made for is work.
Mhm.
And so I'm sure the lady who had Alzheimer's felt like I'm alive again. Like I'm
Yeah.
doing things. I'm creating. I'm with this lady visiting, but I'm also teaching her something I know.
Mm.
And it just sounded like such a better relationship, better friendship, a deeper friendship grew out of that. And again,
Yes.
nothing, I'm sure at times they sat and had a coffee, you know, totally fine. I love to get together and catch up with a friend, if we haven't seen each other for a long time and just talk
Mhm.
nonstop as fast as we can until we both have to leave. That's wonderful. But to really think about friendships, as you were mentioning, just we're doing something together. If you're
Mhm.
coming in, how can you help this lady to grow in her where she's at right now? And if you have a
Mhm.
bunch of little tiny kids, you're not going to be able to just ignore them for an extended period of time.
Right. No, they won't let you do that.
No. And it's so hard to find a babysitter.
Yes. Yes.
That's a whole nother conundrum. Will you also host a Facebook group and a website? Is that right?
Hmm. Yes, we do have a website, theartofhomepodcast.com, and you can get resources over there. If you go over there and look at the menu, there's a resource page and it'll do a drop down, and we have all sorts of resources because we also do sometimes on the long form on Wednesdays, we'll do a deep dive episode. So that's a topical one. And sometimes I do those by myself, but I usually have a guest who will be sort of an expert in that field, or it might just be a girlfriend of mine who I know is really good at that thing. And we do very hands on practical topics like canning or organization or sewing. But then we also do some more, just topics that are a little bit more theory things, just ideas, I guess is what I would say. But it's all related to home and homemaking. And so the free resources that we have for download are all related to those past episodes. And there's just a bunch of stuff on the website. Everything is free. The podcast, we don't have any paywalls for anything because again, I'm here. My main message is to tell the listeners that homemaking is a valid occupation. It's a beautiful way to spend a life, and you can spend all of your time doing it, and that's really a genuine choice that you have. But that usually comes with some financial sacrifices for a lot of our listeners. They're living on one income. And so it's just sort of been, I prayed about this, and my husband and I talked about it for a long time, and we said, we're not ever going to go that route of trying to make this a money making thing. And I just would love to be able to offer everything for free because they're already pinching every penny, most likely, to be able to do this thing that I'm encouraging them to do.
That's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah. Oh, and then
Very
the
true.
Facebook group, you asked about the Facebook group. Yes, that is a group. It's a private group. It's called Homemaker Forum. And we have links to that on the website as well. And we just chat over there. I'm kind of phasing away from social media. It's just not my favorite thing as a
Just
creator,
like
as a
people
content
hire
creator. Yeah, it's
social
such a
media managers all the time.
oh my gosh.
That's why it's
Yeah,
not fun.
I started the podcast and I was like, okay, this is great. I love doing this podcast thing. But then somebody, was like, oh, but are you marketing it? And oh my gosh, that's like a whole other full-time job. So
Right.
I tried to do that for a while and I got tired of playing the games. But Facebook groups are still a great place to meet up with like-minded people, and you can do the private settings, which is why I like that. So we have some ladies over there who we love to share one another's menus for the week. I share some things about the podcast and then ask certain questions. People can go on there and just, if they have a homemaking question or a parenting question, they can ask that there. So
Yeah. Okay. So one of your focuses, of course, is making and keeping a home and
mhm.
looking at it as an art form, which is learned and practiced and you improve over time. How
Hmm.
would you say, what is the best thing to do to start if someone is a little overwhelmed of where do I even start to begin this journey besides listening to your podcast, of course? Or even, the person that has done it and is, how do they improve and find ways to just make their art even better?
Yeah, that's a great question. Like I said earlier, I do like to do artsy craftsy things, and I'm definitely a novice when it comes to art, like painting and things like that. But all these YouTubers that I watch and all these classes that I've done, the same thing over and over again. You have to make a lot of bad art to make good art. You have to just get in there and do it. And so I'll just say that right off the bat, like, try not to be so hard on yourself when you try and you fail, because you are going to fail, especially if you're brand new. And there's so much to learn as a brand new homemaker. So in conjunction with that, I would say check your expectations. This is something that comes up all the time. We talk about this all the time on the podcast. It's actually one of the questions I ask people is, what did you think homemaking was going to look like before you began? And then what did it actually end up looking like? Did those two things match at all? What did you have to let go of?
Right.
Because we have such either unrealistic, lofty expectations or low expectations, both of ourselves and of what the experience of being a homemaker is actually going to look like. So I would just say begin with sort of sit down and measure your expectations, even write them down, like write down what you think like a good homemaker is. And this is also really important. Okay, so do this prayerfully, right? Take it to the Lord and do this in conjunction with your husband. Ask your husband, what does he think good homemaking is? Because I guarantee you're going to be surprised with what he says. What you might be spending all this energy and effort on thinking that that's important to him, and it actually isn't. So, gosh, you only have so much energy. You only have so many resources. So make sure that you're stewarding them well by checking your own expectations, taking, what does the Lord expect of you and what does your husband expect? And then make sure that all of those things line up.
Mm-hmm. I have a funny story. We were very first married. I mean, literally, probably in the first months, not
Mm-hmm.
even a year. And I had the genius idea while he was at work, I was going to surprise him and paint our bedroom. And so I picked out just this gorgeous periwinkle color that was all the rage at the time. And, periwinkle is a mixture between blue and purple. So it's like, well, the blue, it just really felt right in the store, maybe the store lighting, the can color. I put it on our walls at home, and something about the color or the lighting brought the purple out.
Mm.
And he came home and he was like, well, never had a purple bedroom before.
Okay. Oh my gosh.
It's kind of a funny story, but it's just to your point. I probably should have asked him what color he might have liked or preferred. And maybe we should have agreed on it together.
Mm. Yeah.
But also what you mentioned about spending the things you spend your time on.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you feel like something's super important that he really, really wants you to work on. And he's like, it's okay if you don't do that. My podcast specifically talks about hospitality, which homemaking covers hospitality.
Mm-hmm.
That's definitely part of what we do as homemakers. But we're going to jump specifically into hospitality and
Yes.
some of your best ideas when it comes to that. When you're inviting people into your home, when you have a group of people coming over, which now includes grown children, maybe family that's coming in, and the group's getting bigger and bigger with more and more grandchildren coming,
Mm-hmm.
what is the favorite menu you might serve?
Okay. So I had to think about this because I love to cook. It's one of my favorite parts of my job. Now, when I get to cook for big groups, it's exciting because I don't get to cook for like large amounts of people anymore. Used to do a lot of that, but not so much anymore. And it was a big adjustment actually to learn I'm not cooking for 6 people. I'm only cooking for 2 people. But when we have a crowd, when there's a lot of people coming over, I have several go-tos, but the one I decided to talk about with you today was jambalaya. My go-to menu would be jambalaya which if you don't know what that is just a mixture of rice and some kind of meat, and it's flavored. It's usually a little spicy. And then just a green salad and some garlic bread, and then a magic pie for dessert.
That sounds like a great menu.
What I usually do is I cook the rice in its own rice cooker. Because normally, jambalaya came from sort of like Spanish and Caribbean and African, all of those things that came together in the colony days in Louisiana. And so, think like Spanish paella. So it's kind of the similar type of thing. But you would cook it down in like a gravy and a yummy saucy thing, and then it would cook the rice. Well, I don't like to do that. Because it's you never know if the rice is going to be cooked. That's why I don't do that. So I cook my rice separately, and then in a bigger like skillet that I'm going to put it all together in, I will saute my vegetables, which has got the Cajun Trinity, which is onion, bell pepper, and celery. Mm-hmm. And I'll saute those down, and I'll usually brown off the sausage that I put in it. And then I usually put chicken in mine too. And it's a great way to use up leftover chicken too. Because that's typically what jambalaya was. It was like using up the leftover meats with the rice. And so let's see, my veggies and my sausage browned off, and I'll throw some chicken in there and some seasonings. And then once the rice is done, I put all of that together, and you mix it all up, and then that's it. That's all there is to it. So the shortcut is you cook the rice ahead, but if you are really pressed for time, you can use instant rice. I have done it before, and it works. It's better with fresh rice, but you can do it with instant rice.
Yeah, well, so. And it's cooked. It's not going to be crunchy.
Not going to be crunchy. Not going to be crunchy at all. Oh, and for the whole menu as a whole, bag salad all the way. Like if you don't want to be making a fresh salad, just get a bag salad.
Dump it in a bowl.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then I get that Pepperidge Farm frozen bread in the freezer section. It's already buttered for you. And I mean, literally
garlic
there's...
bread?
Yes.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
I've had that before.
All you have to do is throw that in the oven. And if you've got a big crowd, you might want to get a couple of them, and you throw that in the oven. It takes about 10 minutes to heat those up. Yeah.
That's a very fast meal.
It is. I mean, and it's a great meal.
Thing would be your browning and your cooking of your meat.
Exactly. And you can do if your chicken is already cooked and you're just browning off your sausage and sauteing your veggies, you can do that while your rice is cooking. So it really I can have the whole meal put together in less than an hour.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So, and then magic pie is called magic because it's magical the way that it comes together. You put it together.
And how it tastes.
And how it tastes. I mean, everybody I think has a different version of this, but this came from the Junior League cookbook from Panama City, Florida, where my husband was born and raised.
I have a Junior League cookbook. It's called the Cotton Country Collection, and I think it's from Louisiana. I'd have to look to be sure.
Those junior league cookbooks, man, they have the best recipes.
Well, I know, because it was all the older ladies in the community getting together and putting together all their best recipes in there and selling it for a fundraiser. And so you have all the older grandma recipes that you hope to have in your recipe box, but it's all in one perfectly bound book. I still have mine. I've had it for years. My mom had one, and I think she bought me one. Mm-hmm. When I got married, she either found one to buy or maybe she gave me hers. I don't know. But she
magic pie,
some of her favorite recipes in there.
Oh, that's the best thing when you get one of those that someone has written. I have that with I have the original, the Ultimate Southern Living Cookbook. I did a whole episode about this.
Oh, I'll have to go listen because I have it too, and I tell people about it. Like
it's the best.
It's one of my recommended books on my website.
I love it so much. And my husband's grandmother turned me on to that cookbook when we were first married, and I got a copy for Christmas. I think our second year, and I immediately took my copy and I got her copy off the shelf, and then I just flipped through and I took all her notes and I transferred them to my copy. So
perfect. Well,
anyway,
it's like an updated Betty Crocker or something. I mean,
it is.
It's just that comprehensive, every category, every recipe you need, but it was updated.
Yes, absolutely.
Probably had a Southern twist, which I don't see because I'm from the South, but somebody else would be like, oh, that's not how we do it.
Right.
Things like, cornbread dressing versus stuffing, that sort of thing. I'm sure there's stuff in there that people would be like, well, that's weird.
Exactly.
Overall, it's a fabulous book. I still have it. Use it all the time. Keep telling us about your magic pie.
Well, I mean, for shortcuts too, this is the ultimate shortcut dessert. This one, and I have a 1-bowl brownie recipe that's super easy. But the magic pie is so magical because you take your baking dish, and I use like a glass Pyrex dish, and you put your stick of butter, yes, a whole stick, into the dish, and then you
Sounds
put
like
that in
Paula
the oven. You put that in the oven while the oven preheats, and it's going to melt your butter. And while that's melting and preheating, you have your one bowl that you mix up your batter, and it's a roll, kind of like a thick pancake batter, and it's just milk and sugar. I think a little bit of baking soda or powder, I can't remember which one, and a little bit of salt and flour. That's it. I mean, it is a super simple batter. And then so take your melted butter out, and you put that batter over it, and you don't stir it. You do not stir it. You just pour it over the top, and then you get your fruit. And you can use fresh fruit if you want. The recipe tells you to sugar your fruit. That's an older term too. So they just mean like put a little sugar on top of those fresh berries and let them sit there for a while and make some of their own delicious juice. And then you would pour all of that on top, and you don't stir it, because when you put the whole thing in the oven, it magically, the dough rises up through all the butter and wonderfulness, and then just creates like a cobbler, essentially, is what you've created. And wonderful crispy edges around the sides. It's so good. But you don't have to use fresh fruit. And I usually don't use fresh fruit. I use canned. Like canned peaches is kind of the go-to. Okay. So it's one of those dishes that if you've got milk and flour and a can of fruit and some butter, you can put this together.
So if you just have that in your pantry and fridge, you're ready anytime for an amazing dessert for guests.
Yes. And it's so good.
I have to try this. I don't think I've ever made this.
Really, it should be served with ice cream. Just,
Just saying.
Yeah.
Hey, summer's coming up, so we definitely need some good vanilla ice cream with it. Mm-hmm. Is that what you serve, vanilla?
Oh, yes. Bluebell.
Well, now you're just hitting a sore spot. In the north, you can't find Bluebell. I mean,
I'm sorry.
Love their Tillamook up here, which is good, but it's
not
the same as Bluebell.
It's not.
Funny how you get used to a certain, I don't know if texture is the right word, but really that's what I think of. Tillamook is creamier and more custardy to me than Bluebell.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Bluebell is what I have had for my entire life. And so it is the very best, head and shoulders over Tillamook. I know those are fighting words.
But you said it. Stand by it.
I threw it out there. It's a throwdown. So all my listeners, when you're in the South, I guess they're just in the South now. Hopefully they expand, but at least in the South, if you ever visit, you have to try Bluebell.
Yep.
And then we'll talk.
Yep.
You still might disagree with me, but you might be won over and forevermore be wishing you had Bluebell wherever you lived.
Yep.
They are so good. We would have family Friday nights, and one of the top things would be Bluebell ice cream. When the kids were a little bit older, teenage years, it kind of changed and morphed over the years. But towards the end, before everybody started flying out of the nest, on Fridays, each kid was assigned their Friday, where they got to be the leader of the Friday, tell us what we were all going to do. Were we going to watch a movie together? Were we going to play some games? Were we going to go out and get something? Were we going to cook something at home? What was it? What was the dessert going to be? Bluebell was almost always on the menu.
Always. Yep.
And they got to decide which flavors we were going to go and buy. Was it mint chocolate chip or butter crunch? Or those were the top kid favorites. Before we move forward, a big thank you to the sponsors for supporting today's episode. Are you searching for hands-on activities to help your kids explore the practical side of science? Look no further than your kitchen. Inquisicook blends food science and culinary arts into an engaging program that puts delicious food on the family table. Let Inquisicook do the teaching with lesson videos, reliable recipes, and assessment tools that put students on track for success. Their online platform is easy to navigate and optimized for mobile, so the learning experience can move from the classroom to the kitchen without a hitch. Inquisicook turns curious students into intuitive cooks, not just recipe followers. Say goodbye to the tyranny of the ingredients list and say hello to utilizing what's in season, what's on sale, or what's in the fridge. Visit Inquisicook.com to view sample lessons, then check out the recipe gallery to see just how crave-worthy science can be. Today's culture shifts like sand, but New St. Andrews College is established on Christ, the immovable rock. The college is a premier institution that forges evangelical leaders who don't fear or hate the world. Guided by God's word, equipped with the genius of classical liberal arts and God honoring wisdom, with a faculty dedicated to academic rigor and to God's kingdom, New St. Andrews College offers an education that frees people. To find out more, visit nsa.edu. What is your best prep tip for when you're inviting people into your home? Speaking of creating a beautiful home and keeping your home obviously clean and tidy, how do you
Yes.
prepare without being just overwhelmed by the thought of, sometimes we just get real grumpy in our work because it's just never ending. As soon as you get something clean, somebody tracks across the floor and now it's muddy again, that sort of thing. So obviously you want to prepare your home to be inviting and welcoming and clean, but life happens.
Yeah.
So what is your best advice there?
Okay. Well, I have two things. Definitely, like you said, figure out what is your bare minimum basic standard for I'm cool with people coming into my house, and do your best to maintain that, right? And that's going to change depending on what season that you're in. Like right now, it's really easy for me to keep a very tidy house. I don't keep a spotless house. I only dust when I walk by and it blows off the furniture because there's so much. It's like, okay, I guess it's time to dust.
It's dusting day.
But I have kind of a bare minimum that I do every single week to where my home is always tidy and I would be okay with someone coming in at the last minute. So figure out what that is for you and do your best to keep it that way, but don't freak out if it's not. Be flexible and have realistic expectations, I guess is what I would say. Keep a stock of, keep a couple of recipes in your back pocket that are easy to throw together, something like jambalaya or something you can do with very little, I don't need to run to the grocery store to pick up something. I guess I'm thinking more along the lines of spontaneity, which to me is like the best kind of hospitality. I love that. So if you always feel prepared in that way, my home is pretty tidy and I have something I can throw together. I think that sort of eases a lot of the anxiety that you might have about having people over. And then my second tip is backwards planning. So this is more for if you're going to do a larger event, if you're going to be hosting a lot of people and look, for the brand new homemaker, that might be having 4 people for dinner. That's a big deal to you. You and I have been doing this for a long time, so that's not as big of a deal. But there was a time for me when that was a big deal, and it took a lot of thought and a lot of preparation ahead of time. And usually I have found when I get most stressed about hosting is when I haven't taken the time to do a little bit at a time earlier on. Let me first think through what needs to happen in order for this event to occur. I have a vision for what I want this event to look like. Maybe it's a birthday party, maybe it's a dinner party, maybe, fill in the blank. What is it going to look like? And then what do I need to do between now and then to make that a reality? And try to cover all your bases, thinking about who's going to be there, what are they going to eat, where are they going to sit, what's it going to look like, and what are y'all going to do? Kind of thing. Those are kind of the basics, and just work through that in your mind and then think about, okay, what can I reasonably expect to accomplish to make this happen? And what are some things I can do now, maybe even 2 months ahead to get a jump on it, or 2 weeks ahead? Usually the food stuff is going to be kind of more towards the last minute preparation, but you can do some things that you can put in the freezer. But think of what you can do a little bit at a time to sort of take that anxiety away of, oh my gosh, this is happening in 3 days and I haven't done anything. Don't do that to yourself.
Yeah, your tip about using the freezer is a great idea. I mean, if you can, make a dessert that you just pull out of the freezer. It's frozen, or you can set it on the counter the night before, or, just even 1 or 2 little things. Sometimes cooking your meat ahead of time.
Yes.
And pulling out, say, frozen shredded chicken to put in your soup. It's almost an instant meal if you have something done ahead of time. So those are great ideas. And cleaning ahead of time.
Yes.
And it's not the worst idea ever. If you have a teenager in your church or somebody that helps do cleaning, spend a little bit of money if you can. Not everybody can afford that, but if you just get really anxious, see if somebody can come and you can hire them for a couple hours just to do a little bit of cleaning the day of the event. If you have a bunch of tiny kids, maybe that would be an idea. But
Absolutely.
just thinking through, like you said, thinking backwards, like all the tasks and how can I do it leading up to
Hmm.
it where it's actually a blessing to the host as well
Yes.
as the people coming in. You're enjoying it. You're not just a stressed out mess. And then also just breathing a sigh of relief that it's over, you know?
Right. Right.
Like,
And
okay, I'll never do
yes,
it again.
yes. Well, I'm so glad that you said that about the host, because that was sort of the motivation behind this idea of backwards. It's not my idea, but I sort of, that's what I call it. I did an episode on it, and we have a little freebie on doing it around the holiday time. But I was so kind of tired of not enjoying the hosting itself, because I was stressing for 48 hours before the event, and then doing things right up until the end, and being like, okay, I don't even have time to breathe, and there's already people ringing the doorbell. So I'm always encouraging, this is what I try to do for myself, and I encourage other ladies to plan in such a way that you actually have at least 15, preferably like 30 minutes where you don't have anything left to do. And you can just sit there and you can take a few breaths, have time to put your makeup on, like actually plan that into your backwards planning. Like, when are you going to put your face on? When are you going to take a shower?
Right.
It shouldn't be 5 minutes before.
No. Or not at all. Somehow you
Or
had to
not at
skip it. And so you really feel terrible.
Right, right. And I do want to remind people, I'm talking about like a bigger event. This isn't just like, hey, we just went to church and we ran into a family and we're like, hey, y'all want to come over? I mean, that's not what we're talking about. I'm talking about a larger event where you really do need to put some thought and planning into it. Just do as much planning and prep as you can in small bites ahead of time.
Right, for sure. Okay, that's great advice. How do you make people feel welcome when they walk in your door?
This is a great question. So every time I say hi on the podcast, our tagline is, we are exploring how homemakers cultivate a place to belong. And so as homemakers, that's what we're doing. We are creating a landing spot. We are creating a place of welcome, a safe place for not just ourselves, our spouse, our kids, but for anybody who walks in the door. And so my goal as a hostess is, when people walk in the door, I want them to feel like they belong, that they're wanted, and that they're not an inconvenience to me. I don't want somebody to, and that kind of goes back to that whole backwards planning and give yourself time to like be at peace when people walk in the door, because if I'm a frazzled mess, they're probably not going to be as comfortable as I would like them to be.
Right. They're going to pick up on that.
Exactly. They pick up on that, just that energy that I'm giving off. I really want them to feel like I'm glad that they're there and that they belong there. And so I think there's a couple of things that I need to do besides the planning ahead and being thoughtful about that. I need to check my own heart and make sure that my own heart is not self-seeking. I'm not trying to just impress everybody with my mad hosting skills, that I'm truly seeking to serve the other person. And I need to go to the Lord for that, because that's the only place that's going to come from. Otherwise, I get in the way. Self gets in the way all the time.
Right.
I care too much about what this looks like, or that dish didn't quite work out like I wanted it to, or whatever. So checking my own heart, and then helping them feel like they belong by giving them the tools. So this is very practical to me. This is like making sure when they walk in the door, I give them a place to hang their coat or put their purse. I show them where the bathroom is. Hey, here's the drinks. Maybe I have a drink station set up, or maybe it's just, over here if they've never been to my house before, over here in the laundry room is where the drink fridge is. It's where all the seltzer waters and Diet Cokes are, and help yourself. And then maybe giving them an idea of what's the agenda for tonight. I'm keeping it pretty casual. I'm not going to be like handing them an agenda on paper. But just saying, Nate's, my husband, he's out there finishing the chicken on the grill, and that'll probably be done in about 15 minutes. So grab a drink and make yourself at home, and then we'll probably gather and bless the food, and then we'll eat. Or if we're doing whatever else for the night, because some people that makes them more comfortable to kind of know what to expect.
Sure.
For the evening. And I know I've heard some of your guests also say to save a job for somebody to do, which I love that advice. I've had guests say the same thing. when some people walk in, they're more than happy to take their shoes off and put their feet up and just be relaxed in your home. And that's awesome. But there's those of us who are the worker bees. Give
They
me a
want
task. Otherwise, I'm going to be super uncomfortable.
They want a knife in their hand and then they're right at home.
Exactly. So there's been some great suggestions on here on your show, like don't put the ice in the glasses. That's a great last minute thing people can do, or let them stir the sweet tea, or put the napkins on the table, or light the candles, those kind of things. That's another way. So I guess check your heart. If you want people to feel like they belong, check your heart, make sure that you're not making them feel inconvenienced, and then just give them the tools, the practical tools, and that will depend on the person too.
Yeah. I think what you've been talking about also includes just making sure you make time for the people that you invite over, because if you are so frazzled in trying to think through every little thing, which at some point, obviously you want to, but when they're there, you have to make sure that you are actually making time for the people that you invited over.
Yes.
And if you're so busy, task, goodbye. That's not that much fun for you or your guests. And sometimes it can feel that way, especially if it's a larger group.
Yeah.
In smaller groups, you are able to really say, if it's just one other couple or two other couples, a few people, you can really ask about their lives and kind of catch up and see what they're doing. But if it's a larger group, sometimes I think when people are hosting, they rely on the fact that other people are visiting with each other, like your guests are visiting with your guests, if that makes sense. And you can almost fade into the back and just do all the tasks and stay busy and busy. And at the end, the guests, if they've thought about it, maybe they do, maybe they don't, or maybe thinking, oh, I never actually saw her talk to my hostess tonight. Maybe 3 sentences, which is not how it should be. And so thinking through that before you have a large group might be a good idea too. Either stop the tasks until they're gone. Some things you can just let go, like say doing the dishes.
Right.
Or sometimes my guests have on my podcast have recommended working together. Like if you have a friend you can do it with, or a sister, or, having your nieces come over and, just somebody who can actually help you kind of keep your focus on your guests, which we don't always have access to that, but it does make it fun. There was one lady who every time she had a big event, her sister would come help her and vice versa. And they just work together. And that sounds amazing. We don't all have sisters in the same town, but just at some point, think through the fact that you do need to put your time and attention on actually focusing on your guest and making them feel important, and that you really did want them there, and that you have time for them.
Yes. Oh man, I have been tempted so many times because I'm a bit more of an introvert. I have been tempted so many times to go busy myself with clearing up dishes or something like that, because that was just frankly easier than entering into a conversation with someone. I'm sorry to admit, but it's true. It's my nature. And so I have to really fight against that. And the backwards planning and all that does sort of help me be more successful, because then if everything's already been thought through and taken care of, well, then I have nothing else to do but go sit and engage with the people who I've invited into my home.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
I know. So. I definitely think it's a temptation for the hostess, and you just have to recognize what is it that's tempting you. For me, it's the cleaning part. Like I just am like, oh, the kitchen needs to be cleaned up. It's a mess. I have guests here. Of course it needs to be cleaned. It's like, no, your guests are going to be gone in an hour or 2 hours.
Right.
Then you can do it. Otherwise you've missed the whole evening, because you're on maid duty, so to speak.
Yeah.
I'm on dish duty. So anyway. Another thing that one of my guests has talked about is not, and maybe it was even myself, because, thinking through my tendencies is not to comment on all the bad things.
Yes.
If something does not turn out right, or, just that self-focus.
Oh, yeah.
Of wanting to tell people exactly, it's not exactly how I had it planned or exactly how this should taste, or it's actually been better before. No, you shouldn't be complimenting me because, it's actually terrible. It's so funny because I have had to learn that over the years. For one, don't point it out because they never would notice.
Right.
For two, as soon as you do, it really is unintentionally, but it really is seeking praise. If I tell you, oh, it's actually, no, it didn't do. Oh, yes, it did. It's so great. You don't
Yeah,
do that.
yeah. Or it's pride. It's just pride. It's motivated by pride, regardless, because you are not proud of what you have put out because you know that you could do better, and so you're going to make an excuse because you want them to know that you actually usually can do better than.
Great point. Yes, you want them to know how fabulous you really are and how
Exactly.
perfect you really are.
Exactly.
No
But it reminds
here.
me. It reminds me of that's something that Julia Child said. Never apologize.
Yes.
Never make excuses. Just it is what it is.
Yes. Sage wisdom. Moving on to prepping for company coming over, prepping things in the kitchen. Do you have a favorite must-have kitchen item that you use all the time?
Okay. If listeners to the Art of Home are listening to this, they know exactly what I'm going to say. I'm like the evangelist for this product. I talk about it all the time, and I'm not sponsored. Super cubes. So have you heard of these?
Okay, that's so funny that you mentioned that because the ladies fellowship event that I talked about earlier on, one of the signal groups that you could, and they even had a prize giveaway at the Saturday luncheon. You could enter to win the super cubes, but also there was a group that talks all about the super cubes and how to use them and recipes and where to buy them. That is so fun that you mentioned it because that is new to me.
I love super cubes.
And I love freezing things ahead.
I've been talking about them forever. Okay, so it's spelled SOUPER, in case people don't know, super cubes. And there are knockoffs, but I will say, I just think that the design is perfect and amazing. So
and the
they're
size is right.
They're just right.
All 2-cup size, or are there various ones?
No, they have various sizes. I will tell you about them.
Okay.
So I started with the original Super Cube, which was a 1-cup size, and it comes in. It's a rectangle shape silicone mold, essentially. Okay, and the original one had 4 1-cup rectangle compartments within that rectangle silicone mold. And the edge of the silicone mold, it's not a floppy edge like you would do for like a silicone baking mold, it's a rigid edge. And I don't know what's in that rigid edge. I don't know if it's metal. I don't know, but it holds its shape, which is wonderful for if you're pouring liquid into those molds and you're trying to transfer it to your freezer without it flopping and spilling juice everywhere. So that's a number one quality of this product, I think. They also have lids, so you can use them with or without the lids. But I started with that, and it's my favorite one to use because I make my own chicken broth. I make my own bone broth in the Instant Pot, and I usually make 8 or 10 cups at a time. And I love to freeze them in the Super Cube 1-cup sizes because it's the perfect size for just about anything. If I just need a little broth, then I can just grab one of those cubes and melt it or throw it into the pot, literally, that I'm making the soup in. I can take 1 cube, I can take 5 cubes. It just depends on what my needs are. It's also great for like a single serving of soup. So if you want just a little bit of soup, I can take out 1 cube of my broth and I can heat that up. Especially when we have sickness in the house, it's great to have that extra broth. I can just pull a cube out for the sick person, throw in a little bit of pre-cooked rice and some veggies and a little chicken, and we're good to go.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I got started with Super Cubes, was for the use of getting my bone broth in a easy to store and stack format for the freezer. So I don't leave the broth in the Super Cube tray. I freeze it in the tray and then I take it out and I wrap it in freezer paper with a little bit of tape.
Great idea.
And then I can just
Sharpie on that. I
Sharpie on it,
exactly
the date.
And what it is.
Yep. And then I have inside the freezer, I have a compartment, like a container that I bought at the, Target or something. And I just throw all of those cubes in there. And it's just labeled on the container, chicken broth cubes. And I just have a ton of them in there. You can also get a 2-cup size. So that one is the same. All of the Super Cube trays are the same size. They differ as to how many compartments are on that tray. Okay. So there's 4 on the 1 cup tray, and the 2 cup tray obviously has 2, which is the perfect size if you have empty nesters listening and that whole cooking for 2 instead of 6 people thing. If you have extras of a casserole, or gosh, I've put lasagna, I've put like a chicken enchilada casserole servings in there. Those last couple of servings that we don't want to eat them for leftovers anymore. I cut them up into the cube size. It's kind of like a perfect square, and it holds 2 cups. And I put that in there, and you freeze it, and it just freezes solid. And then you can just take that hunk of lasagna or whatever out, wrap it in the freezer paper, and you're good to go. And then the other thing that's really cool that they just came out with a couple years ago is there is a companion baking dish that goes with that 2 cup super cube size. So if I have, like, I just did this the other night, if I have a lasagna that's just the perfect serving size, 1 for him, 1 for me, I take that out of the freezer and I can plop it into that little crock. It's like a nice crockery square baking dish. And I just put his in his crock and put mine in my crock, and I just throw them in the toaster oven, and they just sit there and do their thing and heat up for like an hour, and then we have dinner. It's wonderful.
That's amazing.
I love it.
That's an instant dinner.
It is.
You know, back in the day, I don't know, people still probably have TV dinners, where
Yeah.
they're just so gross. I don't know, maybe
they're
have
gross.
better ones now,
No, they're gross.
Okay. I didn't grow up eating TV dinners. Thankfully, my mom cooked. But it's a homemade instant meal. I love that.
With very little resistance. There's just, and I'd love these for like a Sunday night when I do not want to cook anything. You know, we've maybe been out playing and doing fun things all day, and I don't want to make a mess because tomorrow is Monday. So it's very easy entry for me to just grab that, put that, I don't have to do anything. I love it. Okay. One other thing. You can also, no, 2 things. They have a size that's perfect for making cookies for your own, like make your cookie dough and then plop them into these little cubes. They're like little, I think they're 2 tablespoons, I'm pretty sure. And they make the perfect little size for a little cookie dough blob. And you can just freeze them in the super cube and then pop them out frozen and throw them into like a Ziploc bag. And then the other thing that they have that I haven't used it, but I did get some for my daughter-in-law, and I'm pretty sure she did enjoy these. They make one for breast milk. So they're little breast milk pellets. I think they're 1 tablespoon. I'm pretty sure. And so you can freeze your breast milk in these little pellets, and she designed them. It's a husband and wife team that own this company, and they designed all of it. They're just the cutest. They have the cutest story with their little family. And when she was pregnant with their first child, she came up with this idea for the breast milk ones. And they're designed so that you can just take as many little pellets out as you need and then put them into the bottle sleeve thingy that you would reheat it in. So, okay, that is all my knowledge about super cubes, but I love them so much. So,
well, that is amazing. It's an amazing tip. It's an amazing product. And I feel like we could all benefit from having this because we all know about freezer meals or putting things in the freezer and it helps you. But what's so great about this is the space saving.
Yeah.
Because of the shape, it being an exact rectangle, everything can stack just right up against each other. You can make like these perfect little stacks of things. You can I like your freezer paper idea. The lady who is running the signal group for our Super Cube group this month, somebody put a picture on that showed that they put, I think, 4 in a freezer bag, like a
freezer
Ziploc bag. They
Yep.
put 4 super cubes where somebody could just open the bag, pull one out, or however many out they needed, and then close it back up. But she had her Ziploc bags all lined up in a row. And she called it her super cube library.
Yeah.
It looks
so
like,
great. I love that.
On a shelf or something. Super cubes on a shelf. And it just fit so well. And it just was so tidy. A lot of times in the freezer, if you have frozen things before, everything just is falling and shaped and weird. And, it's just a total mess. So this is a great way to keep things organized, labeled, standing up straight or whatever. I'm going to have to is it a website like supercube.com or is it Amazon or where do we buy it?
Yeah, both. I mean, you can get them on Amazon and they do have a website. And then I think I heard a rumor. I haven't seen it at my Costco, but I know that Costco was carrying like a starter set around Christmas time in 2024. So check your Costco because they
Okay.
might, and it was like a really good price. I can't remember what, it was a great
Wow.
price. So
That's a
check
hot tip.
Costco. Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And if they're not there, maybe check at Christmas time because they do have
Yes.
a lot of that seasonal stuff come in
Yeah.
and out. But I will definitely look
Yeah.
because a starter kit there would be a lot cheaper probably than buying each piece individually online.
Hmm. And they're freezer safe. They're actually oven safe. You can actually cook in the Super Cube tray itself, which I have done
Really?
before. Hmm.
Silicone molds are
Yeah.
popular now to cook in. I hadn't
Yeah.
thought of that. So you could do it in order just to freeze something,
Hmm.
like not even just leftovers.
Right. Exactly.
You
Yeah.
could just
And
make your
and
meal in the
actually,
super cubes.
I would definitely recommend that you follow them on Instagram if you're on Instagram, because she is always talking about ways to use the Super Cube. And I think they have these little videos on their website too. So if you're not on Instagram, go look at their how to and their recipes. They have a lot of them on their website. And she'll show you, like, these are specific recipes to like make the thing. It's not even cooked yet. Like you were saying, you're going to make it in the Super Cube and then it's ready to go, and pop it in the freezer. And then you have it's sort of like freezer cooking, right?
Yeah.
So
This
yeah.
is life-changing for me because I'm almost an empty nester. And over the last few years, I have had to adjust to cooking for 7 people plus friends sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
plus 7
Yep.
plus
Yep.
2, 3. And it won't be long. It'll be just 2. And so
Yeah.
it'll be like you, I'll be needing one little super cube to pull out for dinner on Sunday night.
It's a whole lot less dishes though. It's great.
Yes. If you can do all of the prep and cleanup at one time versus over and over and over, I'm all about that. I love having zero cleanup, yet a delicious home cooked meal and zero cleanup.
Yes.
Oh, how much better can it get? Do you have a story from all of your years of hospitality and being a homemaker? Do you have a story that you want to share with the listeners? It can be funny or not, just anything.
I had a really hard time deciding what to talk about. Lots of stories. Okay. And if there's time, I briefly would like to touch on 2 things.
Okay.
Okay. So one of them's funny. We were going to host a Christmas party. This has been many years ago. My children at the time were, I think, like 12, 10, 7, and 5, because they were all kind of stair-step. And we were living in a different part of Texas, and my husband was a supervisor for, a group of people, and he wanted to have his group come for a Christmas party. He wanted to host it at our house and do something that they had never experienced before. And we had one Brit in the group, and then we had several Northerners, and he's like, let's do like a Cajun theme. And I was like, okay, cool. Yeah, we'll do a gumbo and some etouffee. I had my mom come because she was only about 4-hour drive from us. And so she came over to help. She brought fresh pralines, and I mean, it was going to be great, right? We were going to do all this fun stuff. If they had kids, the kids were invited, and I set up like a gingerbread making station because we've made gingerbread for years and years and years. It was like a cool, fun homeschool thing we did. So, I mean, we went all out on this preparation for this party. It's going to be so great. Well, about 45 minutes before the party, I'm going to get ready because my mom is finishing up in the kitchen, and the kids are playing outside. The boys are outside, and, they're excited because there's new kids coming over and we're having a party, and I'm in the back and putting my makeup on, and then I hear screaming, and I run out. I wasn't even dressed. Like I had like a camisole on, blue jeans, and I just ran out, and then I saw blood, and I'm like, oh Lord.
No.
So what had happened was the middle boy, my 7-year-old, who's the intense one of the group. I love him so much. He's going to be the one that's going to take care of us when we're old. He was an intense kid. He did everything with intensity. Well, I think he had been on his Razor scooter, which he had just got for his birthday about a month before that. Just so excited. And somehow, I don't know, collided with something and cut a pretty deep cut on his forehead. And you know how much the head bleeds.
Vascular. Yes. So I learned that. We have 4 boys, and I learned that with 2 of them.
So much blood. Oh my gosh.
The first one, I didn't know it, and it was a rock to the back of the head. A friend had thrown, and it was an accident, but I mean, just so much blood. And we had to go get staples. And anyway,
yeah.
But I did not know how vascular it was. With the second one, when it happened, it was like, well, it'll eventually stop. But it's blood. It's so much. Yeah.
So yeah, we had to go get stitches. And I mean, this is, less than an hour before we will be having guests arrive for this thing that we have planned for weeks. And
There's blood everywhere.
Thank God my mom was there. I was like, Mom, you are going to have to be the hostess, because he would not. I had to take him. He was hysterical at this point.
Right.
And my husband was coming home. He had a longer commute, so he was on his way home, and so I basically missed. And I left thinking, I don't know if I'm going to even be back at all, if I'm going to miss the whole thing. But this is where that, backwards planning thing came in, and, we had done everything we could. And so it was just going to have to be what it was going to be. And Mom was going to be the hostess along with my husband. We ended up only missing the first hour. So we got back and I was able to participate in most of the event, which was super fun. Later, my husband said when he came, because this was before, I don't even think I had a cell phone. I think he had a BlackBerry, and I didn't call him or anything. And he said, I knew when I pulled into the garage, he said it was like the Passover, because there was blood smeared on the door frames from where he had come in from inside, it was bleeding, and he just smeared it all over. It's like, I knew something was wrong at that point.
At that point, I decided to try not to panic.
Yeah. But it was fine. It worked out. I mean, so all that to say, you just never know what's going to happen. And
that backward planning can really come in handy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the other thing that I wanted to mention was, because I think everybody should do this at least once in their life, I have always wanted to host a ladies' tea, and I got to do it this past Christmas. It was so fun. We had real teacups and the little tea tier, the little tea, what do they call them? Tea trays.
Tray
yes.
With the scones and little cookies or whatever.
It was so fun. I invited, I took this page out of another friend's book. She had done this before for years and years. I invited my friends from my small group and a couple of other friends, and I asked each of them to bring a friend. So it was so cool because I got to meet people that I didn't know, but these were dear friends of my friends.
Right.
And we had about 24 women, and we were close. We were tight, but we made it work. And it was just the best time. And it was so special. I had everybody come and do a little reading if they wanted to. They didn't have to, but if they wanted to share a Christmas poem or a story or a memory or song or something like that. And so we did that as well. We had a little craft. It was so fun. So I highly recommend doing it. Every girl, who doesn't love a tea party?
Exactly. That's a great idea. And at Christmas time, I mean, I know there's lots of events sometimes, but that would be a very special thing to go to.
It was. And I was so surprised because we held it. It was on the 22nd and everybody showed up.
Really?
Yes. I was amazed.
Speaking of planning backwards, they had probably done all their things and were like, okay, we can do this.
Exactly. And it was just the right timing because my goal was to give them just a little afternoon of respite right before things got really crazy,
Right. Before they realized, we really haven't wrapped all the presents or bought, there's more things to buy or more things to cook.
Exactly. And I think that's what it was. And everybody was real positive and receptive and just had a wonderful time. So I highly recommend doing a Christmas tea if you can.
That is a wonderful recommendation. Well, thank you so much for joining me today and for sharing all of your tips and wisdom with the ladies that listen to this podcast. I really, really appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you so much for the opportunity, Bess. It's been real fun to talk with you.
Until next time, bye for now.